Hello, Pastor Rich here again as we talk about how to reach out to those who are de-churched. And as we learned last time, de-church just means people had a relationship with the church at one time, and for the various reasons we talked about in episode 1, may have departed from the fellowship of that church, even to the point that they may have surrendered their faith. I hope before you begin this episode that you have taken a considerable amount of time to pray, to prep yourself, asking God to prepare your heart and mind, and to make the person that you're thinking about, that you care about, receptive to your approaches, how God uses you to touch their heart once again. And so that leads us to, how do we begin? Where do we start? Well, in the Bible, to be specific, in James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, "Know this, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak." And so this episode I would entitle Listen, with multiple explanation points after that. Listen. We are a society that isn't really very good at active listening. When a parent asks his child, "Are you listening to me?" it's more a case of they hear you, but they may or may not be listening to you. Co-workers, employment situations, and on and on. We can come up with all kinds of examples where people hear, but they're not listening. We need to listen to the person that we're working with and working for. How do you reach out to them? Well, it's going to all depend on the relationship you have with that individual. How open are your communications? How frank and free are your discussions about life issues? And especially when we get to matters of faith, the church, God, so forth and so on. Here's the thing. We think we know what people need to hear. We might have that prepared speech. You just need a little Jesus, and you can fill in your blanks. But, and perhaps we've already told them everything we think they need to hear. But what we need to do is listen. And I'm going to say that word over and over in this episode, listen. We think we know them, especially parents with their children. Parents think they know their children because they raised them. They know everything about the child, how they think, how they're going to feel about something. This is my child. I brought them up in the world. I taught them. I trained them. I influenced them, so forth and so on. We think we know how they're going to react. But I have a question for you. When you were growing up, how many secrets did you have from your parents? How many emotions did you keep undercover? How many experiences did you not freely share? Really, we are probably more mystery to our parents than they realize. And that means that your child is more of a mystery to you than you think. And this will go with other relationships as well. Sisters, friends, other family members. There are probably some things that you just don't know about. Just like there are things that they don't know about you. It gets back to how free and how frank and how open your discussions have been. So how do we talk to someone that's close to us about matters of faith? Well, it's going to depend, again, like I said, on that relationship you have. If you've become disconnected, if issues of faith especially have become a no-go zone, a landmine area where to even go in there is going to cause explosions and turmoil, it might take a while to rebuild the trust and to reopen how we're going to be able to hear the person talk about their concerns, their problems, their issues, and to be able to share our thoughts and our the gospel, our wishes for their well-being and faith. It's also going to depend on where they're at in their life journey. If they think everything's great, they may be in a place where they say, I don't need Jesus. If everything's going badly, they may sit there and say, I don't have time for this. It's going to depend on where they're at. And so we're going to have to listen. Listen for the cues that we can use to share our experiences and God's love and concern for them. So we need to get rid of all of our presuppositions, what we think we know about somebody, and start with a clean slate. Depending on that relationship, you might have to start with truly a completely clean slate. Get to know them anew, become a brand new relationship. Of course, how well you know and what the state of your interactions are on other issues will determine where you can begin. But here's the thing. We all want to be heard. We all need to be heard. We don't live in the world by ourselves. And in America today, poll after poll tells us that people feel alone. They feel isolated. They feel disconnected. And that perhaps that is the cause of a lot of the emotional distress and a lot of the social turmoil that we're experiencing. We need to be heard. God created us to be social beings, to interact with one another. From the very beginning, it's not good that they should be alone. And we especially want to be heard by those we love, by those we feel a connection to, those that we know who love us. That's the role of family and friends. Going to creation, God created somebody for Adam to talk to and to talk with and to be in relationship with. When God establishes the church, he says it's not good that we should go about this alone. It's community. And church is just that. It's a family of faith. But all too often, what happens is we close up. We shut ourselves off. We build walls because we're afraid of being judged, of being put in one category or another, of being told that we're wrong, and all the other negative emotions and perceptions that can come with opening yourself up. The world is a discouraging place. Social media, if you put anything out there, I promise you, there'll be somebody who will come along and criticize what you're doing and who you are. And that kind of hostility is what leaves us feeling alone. So listening is that foundation of a genuine relationship, of understanding where the person's coming from and who they are, what matters to them. So we have to take care that when we listen, we don't add to their discouragement. We don't add to their isolation. That's why I'm saying cannot sit there and formulate a response while somebody is telling you something. That is a natural thing we do. We're already building up the what should we say. We know how to respond to it. No, let the Holy Spirit guide you and lead you. Take time to fully absorb what you're being told by this person. And also, when you're listening, body language is important. As I'm sitting here, I'm going to lean into the camera. I'm going to look at the lens, look you in the eye. We have to do the same thing with other people. If we're out looking around, if we're staring out the window, if we're sitting there with our arms crossed and we have this frowny face, it's not very warm and welcoming for the person to open up. And while you don't have to try to formulate an answer, every now and then an acknowledgement is of just, I'm hearing you, the and yes, and other little inclinations so that the person understands that you are involved with them intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, so that they know that you really care. Do you know who the person is? Do you know who you are? That's equally important. How open can you be with the person that you want to bring back to Jesus, that you want to reintroduce and reintegrate into the fellowship of church and the faith? If you have a wall that you can't let them come past, if you have a barrier in the way, it's going to be a problem. And we're going to talk about that when we start getting into actual conversations. Have we done something, perhaps, that would lead them to lead the fellowship, lead faith? Have we become a bad example of Christianity? But that's the next episode. So remember, you need to know who you are. And this is why we go back to episode 1. Pray. Pray that God will prepare your heart, your mind, and so that you can be the instrument of witness that He wants you to be and needs you to be. Because the purpose of all this listening is to develop a relationship of trust, of openness. It's going to become, in a way, therapeutic for you, but also for that person. Spiritual therapy, if you will. And it's necessary for them to ultimately hear what we're going to have to say. If there isn't that connection, then it's going to, as they say, go in one ear and out the other. They'll hear you, but they won't be listening. We listen for another reason too, not just for that connection, but there is going to be, let's put it this way, generally, people fall into 3 categories of being, of worldview, of ways of thinking, however you might want to put this. It's how they process information and how they're motivated. And just how they deal with life. The first category is, I would call, the thinker. And just the person who sits there, we just thinking of the statue where they go like this. It's the person who likes to deal with facts, who processes information in the foundation of their thoughts, their ideas, their views. They want to look at history and they want to measure things and weigh things. They want logic and a process. Basically, their life revolves around reason. The second type of person is the emotional person. And I don't mean necessarily that they're dramatic, but rather they see the world through their emotions. They're empathetic, they're sympathetic. They hurt when other people hurt. They rejoice when other people rejoice. So you could say that they think with their emotions. And the stronger the emotions, the more this is going to lead them. When there's a difference between I'm annoyed versus I'm angry. There's a difference between I like this versus, man, that's a wonderful thing. The stronger that emotion is, the more it's going to push them in one direction or another. And lastly, there's the doer. This is the person who wants to be in the midst of the action, that they see that reason can, you can spend all the time planning you want, but let's finally get down and do something. You can be strongly emotional about it. You can feel this way about it or that way about it, but let's get down and do something about it. They're the person who wants to take action to resolve, to fix, to build up, to create or to tear down, depending on what's appropriate. They want to get their hands dirty and they want to sweat a little bit to get done what needs to be done. And so, like I said, people generally fall in one of these 3 categories. They might be a little bit of a mix, but they're going to strongly lead one way or another. What are you? Again, do you know yourself? Are you a person of reason? Are you an emotional thinker? Are you a action-oriented individual? And this is important because if we're trying to witness to a person who is a thinker and we're more emotive, if we don't attune ourselves to their point of view and their way of seeing things, the phrase is put yourself in the other person's shoes. If we don't do that, then there's going to be a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. It's going to be more challenging to share and convey thoughts. It's going to be more difficult to appreciate and understand where they're coming from. So basically, what we need to understand is Paul's thought. Paul says that he was all things to all people. With the Jews, he was a Jew, and on and on. And it's the same thing we need to be. It's not that we become the person. I don't know how to be a woman. Okay, let's put it simply. I don't know how to be a father. I'm not. And I can use other examples. There are things that you just don't know how to be. We need to meet the person where they're at, is what this is about. We can't drag them into our world. We can't force them to be what we want them to be. We have to humble ourselves and empty ourselves through listening to meet them in their place, in their time, in their circumstance. So as we wrap up this episode on listening, we're going to end the same place we did with the first episode, and that is prayer. We're going to say that throughout this entire process of sharing Jesus with your unchurched loved one, sharing Jesus with anyone under any circumstance involves prayer. Whether it's a quick prayer someplace or it's an ongoing prayer as you deal with somebody you've known for the better part of your life or their life. Pray first for yourself. Pray that you understand who you are. Pray that you're open to where other people are coming from. Humble yourself. Pray for humility and acceptance, understanding and patience, that you can go the journey that is involved in witnessing to somebody, especially if you're going to do a long-term, ongoing witnessing. You need to know how you process things. So start with you. Too often we tend to sit there and say, hey, God, would you fix the other person? It's need to start with, Lord, shape me and mold me. It sounds trite, but it is biblical. You are the potter, I am the clay. Shape me as the vessel you want me to be so that your spirit, your will, your love, your grace can be poured out into somebody else's life through me. Then ask for discernment and understanding as you get to know this person again, that your ears are attuned, that your heart is open and empty, that your mind is without judgment or criticism or anything else where we're trying to fix them. Just ask God to help you to get to know them on a deeper level, the level that He needs you to know them in, so that we can be the light and salt that He wants us to be, especially when it comes to His grace and mercy, sharing the gospel. So listen, be slow to speak, quick to listen fully, listen openly, listen deeply, listen actively, listen. And then next, we're going to talk about asking and sharing and conversation. So continue in your prayers and listen to the person where you're at. And with the next episode, we'll begin to talk about how to get into matters of faith. So with that, God's blessings on your day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.